everyone, welcome to a new episode of Prime Talks. I'm here today with Kuran. He's a partner of Prime Legal. We have been working closely for the past years, and I think it's a good opportunity to share his company and your project. Thank you so much for being here. It's a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Vanessa. Thanks for having me.
So, first of all, talk me through a little bit about your project, what we have been doing for the past years.
Yes, so I founded the firm 7 years ago, based in London. And the real goal at that time was to help UK-based clients getting access back into the European Union. Obviously, the Brexit vote had happened. We hadn't formally left the European Union at that time, but it was kind of in motion. Starting that, we've seen how the Golden Visa and investment migration programs have changed, through the last few years. Our role really is twofold. The first is to manage the process end to end for the client, really understanding the way the client will work, what their pain points are, and being their kind of right-hand man, if you will, through the process. There's two big things going on. One is often an investment, and then one is obviously the immigration process. So these can be deeply personal and
Sensitive.
deeply unique to the client.
Yeah.
So understanding what they're looking for and how to manage the process is the first thing. And the second one is doing a deep dive into the investment options. Now, ultimately, the client is always the one that makes the decision, but they often need help kind of framing in their own mind what they're looking for. They don't fully understand what's necessarily out there. So we really take a step back and we understand what the North Star for what they're looking for in terms of their kind of investment would be. So if we were having this conversation in 6, 7 years' time, looking back, what would be an ideal outcome for them?
Okay.
So that process is often a journey that we go on with the client. Again, as clients in this space, they don't know what they don't know. So that's really how we work with clients.
Good. So basically, understand the client's goal and guide them within the investment options that you have available. And for that, you need to understand the jurisdiction that you are working in. So, tell me a little bit about what are the jurisdictions that you work, what are the top choices of clients, and where Portugal fits in that.
Yeah, so the European Union has had various programs, and at this present time, the main programs are Portugal, Greece, Italy, Cyprus. Though Cyprus is not in the Schengen area, it's scheduled to join, and Malta. Now, those five main programs, I would say that clients who are looking at this from the outside in, their priority has often been another citizenship, so EU citizenship. Now, with many of the other programs, apart from Portugal, they would have to relocate. And relocation is a completely different conversation.
Exactly.
When you relocate, you often become a tax resident, you're changing your whole lifestyle, you're moving your business, your family, and that is a very, very big decision. Also, there is an argument to say if you're going to relocate, why wouldn't you just go on another visa? Why would I tie up capital in something which, might not necessarily be aligned with my risk profile when I can do it on a much lower liquidity? So from the outset, our clients are looking to gain exposure with a route to nationality. So within that, obviously we cover all the programs. Some programs are more mature than others in terms of process, investment option, timeframes. But with Portugal being the route to the European Union in terms of citizenship, that is often, the one which is, obviously the first on their lips.
Yeah. So and now coming back a little bit to an update that we had on the nationality law.
Yeah.
So we had recently a major change in the nationality law. So the time necessary to accomplish the possibility to acquire the Portuguese nationality through residency changed from 5 to 10, as you know. So how do you feel about this change and the impact within the Golden Visa programs that we have in Europe? Because my view is that we still have a very good argument due to the lack of the it's not mandatory to relocate to Portugal to get it. So how do you feel about this change?
Yeah, I think clarity in the market now finally,
Yeah.
after, I mean, this whole initiative or announcement started in June last year. It's now almost June, 26, so a full year. I think that that's important to have clarity in this kind of market. Again, there's two things going on. One is an immigration process and one is an investment process. I see that clarity now being a good thing. I think clients are obviously looking at other programs. It's coming up more and more. But in terms of that route to EU citizenship, it only still really exists in Portugal. If you don't want to relocate fully. In addition, a big part of, I speak to very sophisticated investors. A big part of their decision making is also the investment itself.
Hmm.
Portugal is, as I mentioned, is a very mature market. There are funds that have been around for many years, fund managers that are pre-Golden Visa. They have Golden Visa, manage Golden Visa money, but they'll all be around post-Golden Visa.
Yeah, true.
They manage institutional capital, they manage family office, they manage pension funds, and it's a highly regulated space.
Yeah.
So, the CMV and the regulator is very proactive, is very hands-on. It's still a relatively small space, but all of these things, when the fund space came out in 2018 for Golden Visa, we're now in 2026. There's now a long track record
Yeah.
of some of these funds and fund managers.
Yeah.
So we can really see how they've raised, how they've managed, how they've exited, how they've navigated market
And the
cycles.
returns.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
the track record
Yeah.
specifically. And that's one of the things that, that we help clients with understanding is not only the track record of the funds, but the track record of the management team, looking at this, from a risk perspective, how they've navigated, whether it be COVID, whether it be, the tariffs announcements last year and volatility in the market.
Yeah.
So these are all very important things that kind of puts Portugal, I would say, ahead in terms of kind of the investment options.
Okay.
In
Besides the sun, besides the good
But
weather,
besides all
besides
of
the
that, of
foods.
course, of course, of course. I mean, when we speak to when we speak to clients, they typically have four main priorities. And investor visa clients typically have four main priorities. The first one is capital preservation. This kind of goes without saying. They're trying, their North Star is, but we don't want to lose money on this capital. The second priority, obviously it's very likely that they're going to be exiting out of an investment to enter into this investment. And so within that, they want to reduce the opportunity cost of where that investment would be when they're moving it into Portugal or another market.
Hmm.
So inflation adjusted returns or returns kind of in line with their kind of local index, typically around 7 to 9% a year is really what they're trying to do. As well as the benefits of currency diversification and other things. The third priority often is liquidity. And this is a relatively new concept, I would say, kind of about 2 years in the making. But clients having the autonomy to leave or exit the investment if, the world changes, they need the capital, they're deciding to move to Australia, whatever it may be, they have the autonomy to exit the program within either a week or within 2 to 3 months or 6 months, depending on the type of
Freedom of
fund.
choice.
Correct, correct. And them having more, power in decision making,
Yeah.
through the process, not just at the start. And the fourth one is, again, depends on the market. Different geographies look at this differently, but is the idea of being paid a dividend.
Hmm.
So some clients like the idea of a dividend being paid to them in Portugal. Those are paid in euros into their Portuguese bank account, and they can use that to fund legal fees, government fees, trips
Exactly.
to Portugal,
Exactly.
etc.
Exactly.
So this is the kind of overall framing of why I think that the Portuguese, from the investment standpoint, is definitely the better option compared to others. There's no big donation necessarily. I mean, there is a donation option, but in other markets, there's a donation, or you're not taking you can do the program without taking a huge amount of risk to the underlying capital.
Okay. And what, in your opinion, what is our biggest competitor?
I think I see. I mean, the Greek program has always been quite high in terms of volume. but from specific demographics. So the demographics that look at the Greek program really looking at this as Schengen visa access. They're looking at freedom of travel. So you get a lot of Africans, the African demographic, where the
Asia.
passports, Asia, India, China, where it's just more access to the Schengen area is what they
Yeah.
want versus a kind of a longer term foothold. I would say Italy is coming up more and more conversations. I think from a lifestyle perspective and a kind of country perspective, obviously Italy is much bigger than Portugal. You know, the country sort of sells itself. It's got an amazing, you know, history, culture, etc. And lots of clients, you know, especially a lot of my American clients, see Italy as possibly a place to retire. Um, the issue with the Italian program, whilst it's quite quick and it's relatively straightforward, is that some of the options are still kind of being finalized. So they've recently been a 250K option into a startup type product. Now those are still very much in the infancy. There's not a huge amount of product available.
Comes with risk.
There's not a huge amount of track record.
Okay.
Putting 250K into a startup is a big investment for
Okay.
that
And
world.
important to say also the route for the nationality requires the applicant to live in Italy.
Correct. It's 10 years.
Yeah.
They did actually have a referendum, I think a year ago, to bring it down from 10 to 5, but I don't think enough people turned up for the vote. So it's maintained at 10 years, and they have to physically reside, which again means being a tax resident,
Exactly
and you know, all those
thing that we
lifestyle issues that we
mentioned.
mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So now back a little bit to you.
Yeah.
So I know that you are living in the UK,
Yeah.
but you are here in Portugal,
I am
spending
in
some
Portugal.
time.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that decision.
Yeah. Whilst I love the podcast, I didn't come solely for the podcast to Lisbon. I've been in Lisbon the last 6 weeks. Me and my partner, we're exploring moving out here. You know, London has its own challenges. You know, it's great. I've lived there for 10, 15 years, but exploring Lisbon and Portugal, you know, as a new place, as home. So we're kind of settling in, exploring,
And how
trying
it's
out
going?
different areas. Really well. You know, the
Yeah.
sun's out finally. It's very hot. But no, it's a really, really nice country. We love the way of life.
And
We
how
love the
are you
mix.
feeling the people? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
How are you feeling the culture, people?
I think broadly, you know, I think there is sometimes news around, you know, the locals not liking, you know, expats coming in and driving up prices, and you know, that means they have to relocate, and etc. But you know, on the whole, very, very friendly.
Yeah.
I think that most people understand that immigration is a good thing, and I think that from the person that's coming in, they have to accept in some ways the Portuguese way of life. They have to respect,
True.
you know, the ways of working. They have to, you know, try and integrate as much as possible, not just stick to their pockets of expats. And I think that there's a real understanding that, you know, these things combine very, very well. But yeah, we're on a personal note. Again, I can't speak to other people's personal experience, but we're really enjoying it. We're finding it, you know, it's very nice to go to the beach on the weekend versus looking out the window at the rain in London.
And everything is great.
Yeah. And there's, you know, there's various, you know, we've been to Cascais, we've been to Comporta,
Nice.
we're going to Porto. So we're exploring around different areas, Caparica.
And you
So
have much more. I know that we are small, but you have much more to see.
yeah,
Also in the interior of the country, the south,
yeah.
the north. So it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, really looking forward to exploring the country. And you know, even for my clients that you know, that are doing the investment in Portugal and are doing an immigration process, you know, I always advise, you know, at some point, not just for biometrics, you should go and integrate.
Exactly.
You know, and you know, the idea that you learn the language, in my opinion, it should be, you know, it should be what you want to do anyway.
Yeah.
If you're going to, you know, hold a residency card or a nationality of another country, you should want to learn language, even if very
100%.
basic.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of things that we're kind of trying to get up to speed with.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we'll start taking Portuguese lessons, etc. But no, I think going back to that point, I think that there's it's a really wonderful country. It's very much been discovered now by
Yeah.
parts of the world, and I don't think it's
True,
just
true.
considered to be Spain's kind of younger brother
Yeah.
anymore, if you will, or younger
We
sister.
used to, but
Yeah,
not
exactly.
anymore, not
No,
anymore.
it's kind of its
Yeah, we
standalone,
reached our independency, I
correct,
think.
correct, yeah. So, no, thoroughly enjoying it and have felt thoroughly welcomed.
Good. And speaking about language, how is your Portuguese already?
It's not great. If we were doing this in Portuguese, it wouldn't be very useful to anyone.
But a few words already.
Not
No?
really, no.
Yeah, that is,
Not yet.
yeah, not yet.
It's just it's you can learn, but it's having the confidence to
Yeah, yeah.
speak to someone who is Portuguese, and trying it in a restaurant.
Yeah.
I think they appreciate it. I think they straight away know that we're
The thing is,
British. So
yeah,
yeah,
the thing is that everybody speaks English
yeah.
here. It's very easy for you to have a conversation in English. So ultimately, our clients they mention that, look, if I don't push them to speak in
Mm,
Portuguese, everybody wants to speak with me in English. So
mm.
people, I think, try to integrate and to help with the communication.
Yeah.
But you will get there.
Yeah,
You will get
I'll
there.
get that.
Yeah.
It's just practice, again, being around it, watching the TV and
Yeah.
trying to read the newspapers and the signs on the road, etc. But yeah, we definitely will get there. The one thing, the driving, I'm not super sure about it. I haven't
It's
driven yet, but
totally
I've
different.
witnessed some very interesting driving in Portugal. But yeah, no, those are the
Good.
kind of things that we're enjoying and we're exploring.
Good. Now coming back a little bit to our partnership, so we have been working together for a couple of years from now. Um, what is your opinion about what is the most important thing when dealing with private clients?
I think it's communication. I think there's a few things which we love about Prime. I think being super proactive with communication and strong, easy, open lines of communication, whether it be WhatsApp, Telegram, emails, whatever it may be, setting those kind of constraints and lines of communication at the start of the relationship. So everyone is on the same page and everyone has the same kind of expectation. If you obviously there's times when things get busy and communication gets delayed, but on the whole, they can feel comfortable that they will receive a response within a day or a few hours, if you will. So I think dealing with private clients, they want strong lines of communication. They want transparency and honesty. They don't want you to kind of like, upsell them or, the moment they feel like you're not being honest with them, is the moment they switch off,
Yeah,
and they start looking
a
elsewhere.
breach of confidence.
Yeah. And I think that you have to genuinely speak to them as transparent as if you were speaking to a family member who you really
Exactly.
care about. And I think the third one is something that I've actually battled with a little bit is almost caring too much. Is that
True,
you
true.
care so much for the client, their well-being and what they're doing. Obviously, certain things like in immigration investment is becomes out of your hands at some
Yeah,
point. But
yeah.
I think that it's hearing them out, hearing, everyone is doing this for their own specific subjective
Mm.
reason to them. So understanding why they're doing it it really feeds into the style and how you work with them. And I think just the kind of an overall that private clients know you get what you pay for
Mm.
in these kind of
Mhm.
worlds. You're ultimately making a large investment of 500,000 euros. Alongside that, you want the right team around you. You want people that you can trust that are going to be there, for the whole
For the long
process.
run.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, some as it whatever competitors, if you will, if they're not dealing, we're dealing with us, are not dealing with an employee who might go tomorrow. They want continuity,
yeah.
they want trust, and ultimately we do form friendships with our clients.
Exactly. No, 100%.
So I think
Yes.
those few things, in terms of what we look for in a lawyer, is all of those things, but as well as that is having a lawyer that's done our specific client demographic, knows the nuances of paperwork and documentation that's required.
Experience, it's
Yeah.
important as well.
Someone who's
Yeah.
proactive. So in times of, kind of market stress, like we've seen, let's say, the lawyer is proactive in reaching out to AIMA or lobbying or, discussing solutions with clients, putting on webinars, giving, email updates, etc. That's all very, very important for the client experience. The client knows that there's certain things that will be out of our hands. through this process. But to be able to have someone to lean on at times, to message, to jump on a quick call, within any kind of moments, I think is very important. Um, I try and be personally as flexible as possible as well. We're all on different time
Yeah.
zones. London and Lisbon is the same time zone, but when
But
you're
then
dealing with East
US.
or the US, you sometimes it's -8. And we're dealing with clients that are very busy in their day. So sometimes we have to accommodate, either very, very early times or very, very late times, or possibly even on the weekend. So these are the kind of things that we try and do to accommodate the client. And again, try and respond. They have my personal WhatsApp. I try and respond within minutes of receiving a message.
Yeah. That makes the
So
difference.
yeah,
I think responsiveness
yeah,
is what makes the difference, and knowing how the Portuguese style is,
yeah, yeah.
I think responsiveness is even more important. Talking about demographics, where do you see more interest coming from?
Yeah, I see. I mean, we've worked with over 30 different residencies and citizenship. So, when the Golden Visa started, it was kind of a lot of Chinese, Russians, Brazilians, South Africans, Turkish.
Mhm.
As various economies, have understood more and educated themselves about the Golden Visa, the UK obviously is a market. The US is a huge market now. I would say 1 in 2 inquiries that I receive is from the US. Last year, the US made up 90% of our client base. And I think that that market will continue. Again, from the US side, that they're looking at this as an extension of their financial portfolio,
Yeah.
a genuine extension. We've seen the dollar, devalue about 13% in 18 months against the euro. So those that are looking at different currency exposure, they're looking to diversify various risks, retirement portfolios, possibly, etc. We see the US still being a very big market. I also see India continuing to be a big market. There's various issues in countries like India and China around capital controls and moving money
Yeah.
out of the country. And also, the Indian rupee has devalued quite a lot. So for them, it's cost even more to do, the golden visa. But I genuinely see some more interest from the Middle East as
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
You know,
Due to
um,
the tensions
due to
as
the
well.
tensions.
Yeah.
I think with the government, having cleared the backlog last year, I think, if that backlog was still to exist, it would be very tricky
Yeah.
speaking to clients. But with that reduction in the backlog, all my clients that submitted last year have already had their biometrics,
Yeah.
which is amazing news. Their dependents have been invited for, the end of this year, early next year, so they can see momentum in the process. They can see where the
True.
process is going.
Yeah.
So, I think all of that alongside, funds that, are genuinely
Performing,
performing well, or
things
outperforming.
moving. So
Correct.
yeah.
So, it has to work both ways, but thankfully it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So final question, the future.
The future.
What are your expectations for Portugal, for your business?
Yeah, so we would like to have a foothold in Portugal, obviously exploring moving, etc. We have an awareness of other programs. I still think the Portuguese program will be the most popular one that we do, for all the reasons that we've discussed. Building out, options to help, clients relocate, possibly, help opening bank accounts more remotely, quickly. These are all kind of things that we're looking at to ease that transition from when a client has their visa to when they're formally settled in.
Yeah.
So, making that, reducing those teething issues, making it much easier for them, so when they land, they can enjoy their life much quicker than dealing with all the various different parts and bureaucracies. So that's kind of the big plan for the company. I would say that in from a golden visa market, fund market
Mhm.
perspective, I see it changing. I see those that are more established continuing. Those that are managing golden visa money as well as their own money and golden visa money continuing, those that have good track records continuing. I see a consolidation of the market, some of the smaller funds, closing and running a smaller amount, but not looking to raise another
Mhm.
fund.
Which
And I
is
think
not necessarily bad.
no, it's not
Yeah.
bad at all. Ultimately, these are market forces.
Yeah.
We're dealing with differences in supply, demand, different investor interests, etc. And I think that it's very important. In a booming market, it's very easy to raise money. It's all about deployment. Into the right investments, then exiting. Having different exit strategies,
Yeah.
A, B, C, and D, depending on the market. And these are all very, very important things. But in a booming market, anyone can raise a lot of money. But it's about having that kind of fiduciary responsibility, managing the money effectively by the fund manager.
Good, good.
So
So from my side, my expectations is of course to continue to work closely with
yeah,
you and your company. I thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure,
thanks, Vanessa.
and look forward to the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.